The history we know is written by the victors. In film school, we're taught about the Lumiere brothers capturing a train entering a station. We're taught about D.W. Griffith inventing the close-up. We're taught that cinema is the art of storytelling. But there is another history, a parallel history, one that traverses dark alleys, smoky basements, and locked server rooms. This narrative is often disregarded, deemed obscene or immoral. Yet without this subterranean history, the technology you're using to watch this very video, from screen resolution to internet bandwidth, might never have existed. Film theorist Linda Williams terms it.
My name is Linda Williams, professor of film and media at the University of California, Berkeley.
The frenzy of the visible. That primal urge to see what is meant to remain hidden. From the illicit silent reels of the 1920s to the algorithmic dominance of the digital age, the adult industry has served as the experimental laboratory for visual media. Today, we are embarking on a deep dive. We will deconstruct how this taboo industry shaped the grammar of cinema, won global tech wars, and built the architecture of the modern internet economy. Welcome to Moving Image Study. The impulse to capture the human form is hardly a novelty. It traces a lineage from prehistoric figurines to the pages of French libertine literature. Yet, the advent of the motion picture camera in the late 19th century precipitated a paradigm shift. For the first time, the object of desire was no longer static. It possessed motion. It possessed temporality. It possessed action. Almost immediately after Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers popularized the apparatus, the inaugural blue movies materialized. This validates an unwritten axiom. With every emergence of new communication technology, humanity's immediate reflex is to repurpose it for erotic ends. In the early 1900s, this trade operated in total clandestinity. And this is where the first intriguing phenomenon emerges: globalization. When the French government enacted stringent censorship in 1905, cinematic titans like Pathé and Gaumont did not cease their erotic output. They simply displaced it. Historical records indicate a strategic relocation of production to Argentina. This phenomenon gave birth to an economic concept known as jurisdictional arbitrage. In layman's terms, if domestic laws are prohibitive, migrate production to a jurisdiction with more lax regulations, then export the commodity back to the original market. This blueprint, drafted in 1905, remains the operational standard of the modern adult industry, where massive servers are strategically hosted in nations with permissive digital governance. Back then, however, these films were not for plebeian consumption. They were an exclusive indulgence for the affluent European elite. Captured on highly volatile nitrate, 35mm celluloid, their flammability is the precise reason so few of these artifacts survive to this day. Entering the decades spanning from the 1910s to the 1960s, we arrive at the era of stag films. The nomenclature stag derives from bachelor parties. These films circulated through underground networks, screened in fraternity houses, brothels, or clandestine gatherings known as smokers. In stark contrast to today's solitary consumption on laptops, the stag viewing experience was collective. It was a ritual of masculinity. Since the reels were silent, the audience would jeer, offer commentary, and construct their own narratives. One could argue this was the primordial form of the internet comment section. Aesthetically, a brutal evolution occurred. Early works like A Free Ride, 1915, or the animated erotica of the 20s still possessed elements of humor and the narrative playfulness. There was comedic pretext behind the scenes. But as time progressed, the narrative element began to die, or rather, undergo atrophy. Linda Williams notes a shift from narrative to meat. Stag films began to disregard continuity in favor of visual efficiency. The focus narrowed into a mechanical display of the sexual act. This represents an epistemological shift. Sex was no longer viewed as a mischievous social adventure, but rather transformed into an object of clinical study. The camera ceased to tell a story. It merely recorded evidence. Visual truth, specifically the money shot, became the only currency of value. The 1970s ushered in a revolution. Propelled by the sexual revolution and the collapse of the Hays Code censorship, the industry emerged from the subterranean shadows and entered public cinemas. This was the golden age, or porno chic. In 1972, Deep Throat was released. This was no longer a silent reel in a smoky den. This was a bona fide blockbuster. With a budget of a mere $25,000, it garnered millions. Middle-class couples, celebrities, and intellectuals felt no shame queuing for tickets. For a brief moment, the barrier between smut and cinema crumbled. However, the artistic zenith arrived with The Devil and Miss Jones, 1973. Director Gerard Damiano adapted Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialist play, No Exit. The narrative follows a woman who commits suicide and is granted a reprieve to return to Earth to satiate her lust before her descent into hell. Legendary critic Roger Ebert lauded the film, stating its eroticism emerged not because of the explicit content, but in spite of it. It validated a crucial hypothesis, that sexual arousal need not obliterate storytelling. Conversely, a potent narrative can actually heighten erotic intensity. The impact reverberated through Hollywood. Auteurs like Bernardo Bertolucci, Last Tango in Paris, and Nagisa Oshima, In the Realm of the Senses, began pushing the boundaries of sexual realism in their art house films, responding to the cinematic liberty pioneered by this golden age.
Look, those awfully nice Sony people have asked me to demonstrate the features of their amazing home video.
But the golden age of cinema met its demise with the advent of a new technology, home video. And herein lies the adult industry's most monumental contribution to the modern world, adjudicating the victor of the format wars. In the late 70s, Sony championed Betamax. It boasted superior image fidelity. It had more compact dimensions. Technically, Sony should have emerged victorious, but Sony adhered to a rigid moral stricture: no pornography on Betamax. JVC, the creators of VHS, adopted a laissez-faire attitude. The market verdict was swift. Video rental outlets realized that 40 to 50% of their initial revenue stemmed from adult rentals. People desired to consume this private content in the sanctity of their living rooms, not in public theaters. Consumers acquired VHS players driven by this content availability. This network effect effectively asphyxiated Betamax. The industry proved that content, even that which is stigmatized, can dictate the standards of global technological infrastructure. This pattern recapitulated itself on the internet. If VHS was a battle won by pornography, the commercial internet is a landscape constructed by it. First, online payments. In the mid-90s, banks were terrified of processing online transactions. The adult industry, desperate to monetize, pioneered secure credit card verification and encryption protocols that serve as the bedrock for modern e-commerce giants like Amazon. Second, streaming. Long before YouTube existed, engineers for adult sites were forced to solve a conundrum: how to transmit long-form video over sluggish internet connections. They developed compression algorithms and bandwidth optimization techniques that form the substrate of modern streaming services. Even today, virtual reality adoption is propelled by the demand for immersive POV experiences and teledildonics, remote human-computer interaction.
That is as wonderful as any love could ever be.
There's a movie waiting for you at home. Netflix. All the DVDs you want, starting at only $9.99 a month, no late fees.
In the final analysis, how do we interpret this trajectory? Linda Williams proposes the theoretical framework of body genres. She juxtaposes pornography alongside horror and melodrama. All three are genres that solicit a visceral, somatic response from the spectator: the scream for horror, the tear for melodrama, and arousal for pornography. Our physiology involuntarily mimics the spectacle on screen. It is the most primal, unadulterated form of cinematic communication. To study cinema while omitting the role of this industry is an act of historical hypocrisy. This industry functions as the id of the cinematic medium. It is the shadow that perpetually paces one step ahead, serving as a crucible for innovation and a mirror reflecting our deepest obsession, the insatiable will to see.